right, welcome back to the Work Cultured podcast. We're glad you're here with us. Today we've got Brandon Stanchock. That's a hard name to say, but hey, he's with us. He is the CEO of SWF Industrial and the host of the Just Some BS podcast. BS having a couple double meaning there. Brandon, hey, welcome on the podcast. Thanks for being here. Why don't you give us a high level who you are, and then we'll dive in.
Sure. Thanks, Jason. So CEO, SWF is a metal fabrication company. I've been in construction for, oh my gosh, probably 16, 17 years now, since 2008. Did power plant construction, and then in 2018 came over to the metal kind of industrial world, but amateur YouTuber and amateur podcaster. That's about it.
Nice. Well, when we get to the plugs, I want to hear more about the podcast and YouTube. Did you say power plant?
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, there's only so many power plants popping up, right? Like, was that a very niche market for you?
Yeah. Like many people, you follow in the footsteps of your father. My dad worked for PPL out of Pennsylvania for a long time. And one of the main kind of contractors that worked in the power plant kind of sector, I got a job for them. And I traveled for about 10 years on the road to pretty much 32 states, I think I counted up in that amount of time.
Wow.
All over the place, doing work, doing major projects, things like that.
Wow. All right. Well, we'll find out more, I'm sure, but I have to ask you the same question that we ask all the guests right out of the gate. And I did warn you, but what is a mistake that you've made in leadership that you'll never forget?
Yeah, so I'd say this is a two-prong answer for me. One is the really simple version, and it's just yelling to solve a problem. So early on, when I would get frustrated, instead of kind of walking through difficult conversations, not knowing just because I was ignorant to how to solve them, I remember yelling a couple times to people or at people, and then I look back at that and realize I was such an idiot, and it just hurt the relationship even more. And then the second one was not taking genuine interest in other people as much as I should have in early relationships. And since then, really started reading things like that, getting more educated, being less ignorant, that kind of thing. So I would say both of those have really worked themselves nicely into culture leadership aspect.
Yeah. Wow. And, you took the Aptive Index assessment, and, I've cheated and I've seen your results, right? So I kind of know a little bit about you. I'd say a lot of it. And you have a couple of attributes that are low, that when we see it that way, low is not bad, but what we see is this. I imagine you've been very misinterpreted throughout your life, especially as it comes to caring for people. You're already laughing. Tell me more. How's that?
No, I mean, the normal thing I get is he's way too cocky. He doesn't like people. I'm very much an isolated person outside of my day-to-day, which I'm sure we'll get into. But yeah, the misinterpretation off the go is usually been my entire life. Yes.
Yeah. And so you have to work hard to show people you care, even though you do. And in fact, everything I've seen on your website and the culture, the reason you're on this show, it's obvious you do care. But that first impression, I bet, is tough to get past.
It is.
So give me a little bit of background, right? You started this company, or you became the CEO of this company?
No, so my father-in-law actually started the company in 84, and then I came over in 18 only because he was going through health stuff at that point in time, and we didn't really have a succession plan at that point in time. So we all sat in a living room, and at that point in time, we looked around the room and kind of raised my hand. It took me about a month to make that decision because I loved what I was doing at that point in time. Really? So came over and worked with Al for about 2 years till we finally got him retire until he passed away. He had early onset Alzheimer's dementia that set in. Man. So it was that transition period that we tried to get everything under wraps. And so 18, I came over, and then the rest is kind of where we are right now.
Yeah, man, I bet that was tough on the fam.
It was.
Especially your wife, yeah. Wow. And so you started as a vice president, slid in almost 4 years ago as CEO. What are some of the things, hurdles that you've had to hop over with that transition, with everything that happened? Just give me some insight to what you've kind of had to struggle with there.
Worst one, probably imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
One, because it's not mine. I didn't build it. I'm probably not qualified. All of those things, right? And not pushing too hard on the things of least resistance early on for me is what my president told me actually when I was leaving my old job. He said, don't try to change too much too quickly, because that's he knew what kind of person I was. And when you go into a role where you're really uncomfortable, I feel most people will go to the things that they're good at first. So that's where I focus, was the project management sector, project performance, visibility around that. But I had to not push too hard because the PMs, don't put too much pressure in one area. So really just taking my time and then getting comfortable in my own skin, which probably took years. I'm probably just getting to that point now. That was probably the hardest hurdle for me.
Okay. Wow. Now I see some pretty amazing things, and obviously you had something to do with this. Not everything, given your tenure, but like especially this first 30% of your team members have been with you for over 10 years. So, almost a third of people have been there longer than you, right? That's amazing.
Yes.
Almost 2/3 of your management team started in the shop or in the field. And then 77% of your project managers were internal promotions. Like, tell me about how you've built a culture that has that sort of internal promotion, and not just that you're promoting people, but that it's actually successful, right? Sometimes we promote people from a field role to manage that field role team, and it just goes sideways. But if these folks are sticking with you for the long haul, then you're obviously doing it well. So give me some insight there.
Yeah, I mean, Al really knew how to hire people and keep them around. I mean, he certainly, he would probably hate the attempts. We talked a little bit about this with some of your personal stuff, but I don't think I would have made it past maybe 4 weeks with some of the crazy ideals that we've been going down. But he had really, really strong people. I walked into a really amazing group, which allowed me a lot of leeway to figure myself out, which thank goodness for that, because I wouldn't be where I am today without the group that was already there. And then finding my own voice on where I could help. And then really just pivoting to the new generation of work with flexibility and accountability being in the same sphere. And I think that's a hard thing to get both of those right. So we've really leaned into some of the rules in the handbook that people didn't like, find solutions for those, and then try to flex people being adults but still having accountability for the company. I mean, perfect example of longevity and internal promotion is our COO, Brian. He was employee number 6. Welder on the floor up through, crew leader up through general, plant manager, general manager, and then COO. So I've got him for about 4 years yet. He's one of those key positions where I may cry in the corner of my office when he finally hangs up his boots. But what an amazing person. And we have tons of those. I mean, our retention graph right now is sitting over 8 years on an average, and normal construction's about 4. So, but we're fortunate with people who've been there for a long time to tilt that scale in our way, but you have to keep them.
Yeah, no doubt. And you guys have your own struggle being in the industry you're in and the type of work that's required. And what I mean is, so much of the work culture is moving towards hybrid and remote work. That's not an option for you guys, right? So at least, well, maybe I don't quite understand.
The office it is. Yes.
The office, sure. Yeah. How has that whole transition and journey been, watching the landscape post-COVID or even during COVID? What's that looked like for you?
Yeah, it is interesting because early on, right when I started, I remember everybody was on the same schedule. So if the shop was working 10, the office was working 10, the field was working 10, and that was it, right? Because those conversations are difficult of why not me? And obviously people in the shop and field, we go to customer facilities, we're on their calendar. When we're in the shop, we're obviously working different hours to get projects done. And then, some of the PM and office staff could have flexibility in remote work. And, some of it was pushed because we ran out of space. So we took people who was always sat at their desk, never moved all day like detailers, and we sent them home because we needed the cubicles. You know what I mean? And so that just morphed into like, oh, okay, this isn't as horrible as we thought it was going to be. And we're figuring it out as a company. And then it just became normal. And then you can kind of flex that muscle even more. And then for the shop, and field people, it's something to look up to aspire to. If you'd like to get into PM leadership role, any type of management position, that can come some with that territory.
Yeah. What were some of the difficult conversations like in terms of taking that everything's uniform and breaking it apart, so to speak, right? Segmenting it and having some people with certain privileges when other people didn't have them.
Yeah, and it's making sure you keep a balance. So one ways we do that is the shop has multiple calendars to choose from on what they want to work, whether they want to work 8s, 8.5, 9s, 10s, 11s, whatever that is, that whatever their family needs and they need, as long as, and our office job is to keep the work coming in. So all of our people have exactly amount of hours they want. So that's the pressure on the office because we all work for everyone in the shop and field. So some of the conversations early on that were difficult was, how do I know they're working if they're not here? If I can't touch them on the shoulder, how do I know? So I'm a very data-driven person. I think you could have people sitting in an office for 10 hours and still not getting productivity, which most of us know, but it's hard to wrap your head around that. So we go for results. We have lots of data, lots of reports, lots of meetings that we cover that accountability piece, I think, pretty nicely. And then it's just, having real conversations with people. We did a lot of that during COVID because no one really knew what was going on. So we just had open conversations of, how are you feeling? What are you doing? What would you do? What does this mean to you? That kind of thing.
Yeah. It seems like you really have a sense of compassion and care for people. And I'm curious where you've looked in terms of whether it was podcasts or books or other leaders to really get your own strategies to build a good culture and have that retention and all the things that you are doing well.
Yeah, I'm not sure I even know. With traveling so much, I saw a lot of what not to do and what to do just by the way people reacted to different project managers that I was working. What was really cool about all my traveling is every time I showed up to a new site, I was the only permanent employee. Most of the people I was working with were temporary and they all knew each other. So I was coming in as the outsider. And then I had to, 2, 3, 4 month time frame had to become a pivotal part of the team. So I really learned how to, I think, navigate those waters very quickly, have crucial conversations with people very quickly, become really a part of a team, be likable, but still hold accountability, still hold myself accountable to my own responsibilities, that kind of thing. So I think that helped me hone that. And I watched some terrible things, and I was a part of those terrible things on how I was treated from certain people in the past. And once you go through some of that, you realize, one, how you don't want to make other people feel, and two, everything's kind of easy when you get humiliated in front of other adults, like in a work setting, you know what I mean? And so when you go through that, you don't want to ever do that to someone else. So I think I learned that very early on, how ruthless the construction industry can be. So I think that helped me. And then difficult conversations have never scared me. I don't know where that came from. But I learned it on very quickly. So I'm not afraid to, just have one-on-ones and go up and talk it out instead of sending emails or texts or whatever.
Yeah. How has the makeup of your executive leadership changed since you came on to now?
Yeah. So what's interesting is we probably got rid of like the manager meeting on a monthly basis because we just talk in other ways so frequently and so openly. I don't know, super transparent. I'm a very transparent person. I give a lot of data away to the entire company because I want everybody engaged. I think engagement wins on safety, efficiency, culture, blah, you name it. Because engaged workers actually care, and there's a reason that they care. So we're all trying to get from a team perspective on engaged to the entire company. But like explaining insurance performance to an entire group of people. It's what I do every Wednesday on a safety roundtable for the last month, right? But I do think it makes a difference. So engagement, transparency, data, flexibility, all that stuff I think is the main changes. Personnel really hasn't changed, so I was able to bed that in with kind of the group we had.
Yeah. All those, there's all tons of studies out there about employee engagement and how many are engaged, disengaged, actively disengaged, all that. What we don't talk about very often is how closely tied engagement is to organizational trust. And and trust is this really strange thing that we could go on about for hours, but the best way to get to trust is to give it first. And that transparency that you're talking about is a way for you to give people trust. You're trusting them with this data. You're trusting them with these, this insight into the kind of behind the curtains of the company. And when they feel trusted, it causes them to trust, and it causes them to feel engaged. And it's real interesting. Even if there's not an intentionality behind that, you're having that impact. And I think that's fantastic.
Yeah, it was only intention to try to improve. I don't think I made the connection to trust equals trust. I really didn't at all. I know I didn't, but it was just finding ways to get better. It was terrifying. I don't know what good looks like. I don't know what right is. We're just trying to, figure it out as we go along. And I remember a specific example when we used to have a rule that if you didn't show up to work after a vacation day, you didn't get paid. Sorry, after a holiday, you didn't get paid for the holiday. And I was like, this is crazy. Ooh, and so we changed it. And I remember some of the team being like, no one's going to show up after July 4th, right? So it was July 5th. July 4th was like a Thursday too, right? So it's one of those horrible ones,
yeah.
Totally. Where like, there's no way people are showing up that are supposed to be here. And I remember I was at the beach that weekend. I was waiting for the list of people who were off to come out of my email. I was just waiting for it. And it showed up, and 0 people who were supposed to be off were off. So like everybody who was supposed to be there showed up on that Friday, even though we just changed the rule like that year. And I was like, oh my God, it worked. Woo! Yeah. I didn't know if it was going to. But
man, that's great. Yeah. And talk about the pressure taken off of people, right? Now you're trusting them to do what's right, and they're happier to come in on Friday, July 5th versus they had to, obligation versus choice. There's a radical difference in how we feel about the situation we're in.
Yeah. How many people make rules for the 99 because of the 1 when you just should keep the 99 free and just talk to the 1 and just deal with it? Yep.
Now I believe you're a very systems and process oriented person. Is that, yeah?
Yeah.
So as you came in, right, you looked at the rule book, so, that you're talking about, and it sounds like you changed a lot of the rules that were there for, maybe it was the 1%, but the people that put them in place didn't think they were arbitrary. They thought that there was a need for them. And you were like, even though you're super process oriented, you're like, no, let's actually like dial back some of these processes that you've believed were probably harmful to the culture.
Well, some of it was selfish. I didn't like them. So I assumed other people didn't like them. I mean, it wasn't a super like, I went through the entire company, asked them 3 things they hate about working here. That was one of the first things I did. I walked around with my laptop and an Excel sheet and everyone's name and just wrote them down. And I said, okay, what's the lowest hanging fruit? Which ones can I solve first to get a couple wins under my belt? And then the hard ones, it'll take maybe a couple years. And then I got back to everybody and said, I won't be able to do anything with this. I'm going to try to change this one. This is going to be a long-term goal, blah, 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 blah. And then, we just started working our way through that list. But some of them were they annoyed me because they were annoying. So I said, there's got to be other people here who don't like this. And we just started having conversations around them.
Yeah. I think you're probably being a little humble here because, or you're just accidentally even more brilliant than you think you are.
I'm not brilliant. I would never put that word with me.
Walking around with a laptop, right? I mean, you even said that you came in and you were like, man, there are some changes I'd like to make. And you knew that would be a mistake. If you just went nuclear, right, it would have fallout. And yet so many leaders do that. They come in and they think that the way they're going to impress everyone is by making all these big changes. Look how smart I am. And you came in and you said, no, what does everybody else think? How can I improve this for you? And they got a voice because of that. And you made those changes based on that feedback.
Yeah, and some of that was luck too, because I'm the most mechanically deficient person in the building. So I'm coming into a place where we build things to make people's lives better or feed people or, food, pharma, beverage is huge markets for us. And I can't do a single thing that is going on, or even, some of the meetings we're in, I make sure I'm in my swim lane and I'm only there asking questions because I'm ignorant, but sometimes they come out with like, oh yeah, we didn't think of that because we were too close to it. Right. But a lot of that was was just because I didn't know any better, right? And one of the first conversations I had with everyone is like, the joke around the office is I hold the dumb end to the tape measure. Like, that is a fact. That's what my dad makes me do, because my dad can build anything and I can't, but he calls me a when his Wi-Fi is broken, right? So we all have superpowers, but building things that's not for me.
I love the irony of what you just said. And for those who are listening instead of watching, Brandon's backdrop is like one of those like tool pegboards with tools hanging up behind him.
I didn't put that up myself.
Oh gosh, that's fucking brilliant. Oh my goodness. Oops, swear jar. So so you're probably a lot more settled in now after 4 years of this, and probably striving for some company growth. What do you see as the next hurdle, the next challenge that is going to keep you up at night?
Filling people's potential.
Say more.
Because I don't want them to leave, but I also want them to become the best version of themselves, and I want to have opportunity for high pot people, because we have a lot of them. The problem is we have a lot of
high what people? Sorry,
high potential. Sorry, high pot came from my previous employer, but yeah. So they called high pot or high potential people, people that have a high ceiling for leadership, management, just doing really high value tasks. And we have considerable amounts of them who are very hungry, who are younger, middle. It doesn't really matter. They're kind of all over the place. But I also have older individuals who are still very, very good at their job, and that generation they love work. And it is a bit of their identity. So they don't need to, nor do I really want them to go. And it's that balance between the two. Growth in what way to make sure that we can keep the hungry people with us.
Yeah, that's hard. I mean, what a great problem to have, though, right? That you have so many people with high potential. But yeah, you want to care for them. You want to give them that opportunity to reach their potential. But you can't do it with everybody all at once, because then there's no positions left.
Yes.
That's an interesting conundrum you've got. How are you going? Go ahead.
I was going to say, it's against I'm not an entrepreneur at all. I'm a manager. Like, that is my superpower. I couldn't do what Al did. I can't start something from nothing. That is not in my wheelhouse. I don't have the risk profile for that. So this phase of us scares me. So I'm surrounding myself with people who are, their superpower is growth and entrepreneur. So that's my Vistage group, some people in my Vistage group, adding some people hopefully to the board as well, to cross all my T's, dot my I's, so that I feel comfortable to say, let's go. Let's my risk is comfortable with this. I feel comfortable. Let's go on to the next phase, whatever that is.
Yeah. You mentioned a board, and is that something that has been instituted for quite a while now? What does that board look like?
The board was implemented after Al passed away, and we went into the second generation to make sure that we had what I believe the proper way to do things when you don't have a single owner anymore, to make sure that we have really smart people in the room to point us in the right direction.
Yeah, that's great. Are they equity owners, or well, it doesn't matter. We don't need to get. I don't need to get behind the curtain on that. But yeah, that is really great. I mean, it's so good to have a challenge network around you, and when they're directly involved in your business and know your business intimately, that just makes it all the better. Are you part of any other networks? You're in Pennsylvania, right? What part?
Yeah, correct. So I'm part of the Vistage York chapter. So there's 12, 13, 14 of us or something like that. We founded that 2 or 3 years ago. So that's been really amazing. I'm trying to start potentially. This is like kind of fresh off the presses, but I'm looking to work with another colleague to do a bit of like a manufacturing group, because we don't really have one for this area, but we have tons of industrial manufacturing. So that is one thing I've wanted to be a part of, is kind of an industry group, because I'm very novice to that. So looking to do something with that.
Yeah. There's a pretty thriving regional manufacturers association here in Austin called ARMA. Really fantastic people, and yeah, I'd love to hear later on when you've started that how it's going.
I don't even know if anything will come about it, but we're going to at least ask the question.
Yeah. How close is York to like Philly or some of the other?
We're about 2 hours from Philly, an hour from Baltimore, 2 from DC. So we're pretty close to all the major stuff.
Gotcha. Is it a more rural town? Is that the bulk of your workforce as well?
Yeah, a lot of, from my understanding and what I've heard in the past, is a lot of companies put their manufacturing plants in this area because it's Pennsylvania Dutch. We reasonable cost of living here, not afraid of long hours of working because of some of the background that comes with that. So you get hard workers, reasonable rates and things like that. The cost of living in this area is pretty good as well. So, and you have major highways to those three major cities. So
yeah. We won't go there, but man, you guys, the whole state and your workforce has very much been in the news with the upcoming election. We're not going there. It's just been fascinating to see the back and forth happening. But we're not going to ostracize our listeners or viewers.
Please no.
It's a little divisive right now, is it not? That's
a little
bit. Something going on there. Man, this has been such a great conversation. Before we kind of transition into the shameless plug piece, is there anything that was top of mind for you that you're like, man, I really hope to have a chance to share this about the culture, or your secrets, or anything like that?
Yeah, the one thing that always comes into my head whenever I think about that is I think we make culture way more complex than it needs to be. The phrase I always like to say is happy people are efficient people. And that can go across literally any position. So it's very simple.
Totally.
If you hate it, someone else probably does too. So it does not have to be that complicated. It can really just be around asking questions. And if you are unsure in what direction to go, just start asking people's opinion, especially if it affects more than just yourself. That is, I found the fastest way is to just put that scary thing in your back pocket and then just start getting some data from your people to find out how they feel.
Yeah, you say that and I hear it and I recognize, yes, it is so simple, but it's just not easy and it doesn't come naturally to a lot of people,
Good point.
Especially kind of entrepreneurial profile type people. We kind of suck at pro-social behavior sometimes. Because it's my idea, and if anybody's listening, if you're like Brandon, that's awesome. That comes naturally to you. If you're like me and you suck at it and you have to do coping strategies, just, be aware of that and make sure you know what those coping strategies are. Instead of having to be right, have to get it right. And those are very different things. And if you have to get it right, then you might start looking at what everybody else is thinking.
Well, yeah, I hear you. But I also it would be very difficult for me on the risk side to go from 700 to however many thousands of workers you had, like in your own personal success. Like that is amazing to me, right? So, which is why we all need each other.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do.
So know your strengths and weaknesses and find people to fill in the gaps.
Yeah, you would have gone mad had you seen how unorganized our processes were. And that was fine in Texas and in Pennsylvania, actually, as far as like workforce goes. But when we expanded into Ohio and California, and we didn't have all those legal compliances right, boy, that cost us some money. That
Sure.
was real bad. Yeah, because my risk profile is high, but therefore sometimes the details aren't buttoned up. Yeah, pain thinking about it again. All right, Brandon, well, give us some shameless plug. Tell me more about the YouTube, more about the podcast, or whatever it is you want to tell us about.
Yeah, sure. So Just Some BS podcast, release every Tuesday. If you want to be a guest, I have all my social links are on my LinkedIn profile, and I have a free podcast form on there. So, well, free, but you can just sign up if you have a topic that you're interested in talking about. I don't know how long I'm going to do it. I'm enjoying it. I like learning from people. So for now, it's great. And then main channel I'm focusing on, I kind of have four, but the main channel I'm doing a lot with on YouTube right now is the Detailed Traveler. So we travel quite a bit throughout the year. I love vacation. I realize that I can do about 60 days of work and then I need to get away before I start losing my shit. So at that 60-day mark, we usually go somewhere and then I do reviews of our excursions, activities, resorts, things like that, because I can R&R for about 3 days and then I need a to-do list of things. So my B-roll and things I want to record takes over. So I actually have a good time on vacation. But yeah, Detailed Traveler, Detailed Travel, resort reviews, excursions, you name it.
Yeah. Are you going multiple continents or is this mostly domestic travel?
No. So, What's cool about the insurance group I'm in, we get to travel outside the country twice a year. So I just got back from Whistler in September. We were in the Grand Caymans in March. And then usually for our personal vacations, we went to Hawaii this past June, and we're going to Italy, Switzerland next year. So yeah, get a little bit all over the place. But it's kind of the family stuff's up to the family, whatever we're going to do. And then the business stuff, I kind of just go along and then grab whatever I can from places I've never been before. So,
man, that's awesome. That sounds fun. Cool. Well, say the channel names one more time, just so our listeners have
it. So
Just
Some BS podcast. That's also on YouTube and audio only. And then Detailed Traveler.
Excellent. Brandon, this has been a fantastic conversation. Really glad you had us. I had you on, and you were able to share so much. We are going to end with our quick fire, so it'll be a this or that, and you just tell me what comes to mind.
Sure.
We'll start off easy:
these.
football or soccer?
Wow, they're both called football, but soccer.
True. Okay, yeah. If you're leading it with they are both called football, then I already knew what your answer was going to be. Fair enough. All right, Detailed Traveler: Europe or Caribbean?
Ooh. I haven't been to Europe yet, so I'm gonna have to go with Caribbean just because I know it better.
Oh, okay. Philly cheesesteak or literally anything else?
Anything else.
Let's see. Home workout or gym workout?
Home workout. I hate the gym.
And then last summer or winter? Easy one. Maybe.
Yeah, I love fall. I do like it hot, but I love like fall in general. Like I love sweatshirt weather, but I love being hot, so I'm gonna have to go summer.
Nice. I feel you. I love the cold. I'm traveling to Indiana tomorrow, and I looked at the weather and just I'm gonna eat it up. Get out of this 90-degree Austin bull crap.
Yeah, you guys got it.
I'm excited.
Pretty horrible down there this year.
Pretty much all the time. Yeah. Again, it's been Brandon Stanchock from SWF Industrial,
Correct.
host of the what is it called? The
Just Some BS podcast.
Just Some BS podcast of the Detailed Traveler. Thank you so much for being on.
Thank you, Jason.
Yeah, we will.
Great questions,
keep in touch,
by the way. Good job.
Good. Thanks so much. Well, you've been listening to Work Cultured, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.